All right, so this is going to talk about the psychoanalytic approach again, focusing on the defense mechanisms. So, title this section Defense Mechanisms. So, what are defense mechanisms? The ego has a pretty important job: control the id and make sure to listen to the superego. The ego needs to protect you from threatening thoughts in our unconscious. So, a human faces a ton of anxiety, and it could lead us to feeling really bad. One way to protect us is through what we have as these defense mechanisms. You are usually unaware that you're even using them. So, defense mechanisms is a psychoanalytic theory, in the psychoanalytic theory, is the way that the ego's protective methods of reducing anxiety by unconsciously distorting reality. So, there are 8 different defense mechanisms that your book talks about, but there are more defense mechanisms that Freud has named. These are the specific 8 you need to know: repression, regression, denial, sublimation, displacement, rationalization, reaction formation, and projection. So your mind doesn't want to feel bad or doesn't want to feel anxiety, so it distorts it and uses these to protect himself, essentially. So the first one is denial. Denial is a psychoanalytic defense mechanism by which people refuse to believe or even to perceive painful reality. So you refuse to accept real events because they are unpleasant. People refuse to believe it ever happened. You go on pretending like nothing ever happened. If you, for instance, cheated on a test and your teacher caught you, you may deny. You may tell yourself that you didn't cheat in order to protect you. And this is a use of denial. Repression. Repression is a psychoanalytic theory in the basic defense mechanisms that banishes anxiety-arousing thoughts, feelings, and memories from our unconscious. So we push thoughts that we don't like into our unconsciousness, oftentimes making us kind of forget. You're aware that they're happening, but you just want to forget about them. So let's say something happened where you had a really bad abusive childhood and you're aware that it took place, but you're not denying it because you know it took place, but you just repress it and you don't want to talk about it, or you avoid it. Regression is another one. Regression in the psychoanalytic theory of basic defense mechanism, in which an individual is faced with anxiety, retreats to a more infantile psychosexual stage where some psychic energy remains fixated. So essentially, you return to an earlier comforting form of behavior. Individual is faced with anxiety, so you retreat more to an infantile way. So let's say somebody broke up with you and it's really causing you a lot of stress and anxiety. You may cry and run to your mom because you often did that when you were upset. Here we have somebody hugging onto their teddy bear, maybe if they're afraid of the rain. Reaction formation is in the psychoanalytic theory is a basic defense mechanism in which the ego unconsciously switches unacceptable impulses into their opposite. Thus, many people express feelings that the opposite of their anxiety-arousing unconscious feelings are. You express the opposite of how you actually really feel, is what this one is. So, you just got fired. And instead of breaking down and crying, your reaction formation would be that you start laughing. Okay, another example would be that you really dislike somebody in your group and you smile and you tell everybody, no, they're wonderful. Okay, projection. Projection is a psychoanalytic theory in the basic defense mechanisms by which people disguise their own threatening impulses by attributing them to somebody else. So people disguise their own threatening impulses by attributing them to somebody else. So you disguise it. So let's say you're the one that was late, okay, and you know that you were late. Okay, you might turn it around and say something to them Like, oh my gosh, you're always late. Okay, instead of making yourself feel bad, okay, you're going to turn it around on them and make them feel bad. Okay, another example could be that you're gaining weight, and you might look at somebody when you're talking to your friends and say, wow, did you see Susie? She's gaining so much weight. In reality, you're the one that's having the issue with weight, to make yourself feel better. Rationalization in psychoanalytic theory is the basic defense mechanism that offers self justifying explanation in place of the real, more threatening, unconscious reason for your actions. So, self justifying explanation in place for real, more threatening, unconscious reasons. You're trying to make logic. So, let's say you didn't get into U of I, okay, and you got your letter back that said you didn't get into U of I. You would say something like, well, I really don't want to go there anyway. Or, a big one is that you got on the scale and you gained weight. Well, you may try and rationalize this. Well, you've been working out so much that it's actually not weight that you're gaining, it's muscle. Displacement in the psychoanalytic theory and the basic defense mechanisms shifts your sexual aggressive impulse towards a more acceptable or less threatening object or person, as when redirecting anger towards a safer outlet. So let's say you were really mad at me, okay, because something happened where you failed a test. Okay, well, you wouldn't come and yell at me. You may go and yell at one of your friends because you're very upset about the situation. So you transfer inappropriate urges of behaviors onto a more acceptable or less threatening target. For a parent, maybe they take their anger out on their children, okay, if they had a bad day at work. Often displays on less threatening things. Sublimation in the psychoanalytic theory is the basic defense mechanisms by which people rechannel their unacceptable impulses into a socially appropriate way. So it's not appropriate in society to fight in the hallways, to fight at school. So maybe if you have these urges to fight, you may join the wrestling team. Okay. Somebody who likes to gossip, it isn't socially acceptable to gossip. So maybe you are going to join a debate team where you get to have arguments, or you get to talk about others in an argumentative way. So it's taking these impulses and turning them into a socially acceptable way to use them. Here's the defense mechanism. I went through each of them. I did give you some examples. It might be helpful. Maybe you want to copy, paste this, have these examples in your notebook for further use in class.